Have you ever had a feeling of déjà vu or wondered if your life today might be connected to a life you lived a long, long time ago? Well, today we're diving into this incredible collection of ancient Buddhist tales called the Shun Jing, or the Birth Sutras. And in them, the Buddha himself answers that very question through stories of his own past lives. So let's get into it and see what wisdom these tales hold.
You can think of this text as the Buddha's spiritual autobiography, but one that spans countless lifetimes. He used these stories not just as fun anecdotes, but as powerful teaching tools to explain some really deep concepts, like cause and effect, what we call karma. Each story is like a case study, a puzzle piece that helps make sense of the present by shining a light on the past.
So here's how we're going to break it down. First, we'll get a feel for what these stories are all about. Then we'll jump into two really powerful examples, one about the trap of desire and another about the tangled web of karma. And finally, we'll pull it all together and see what these ancient stories can teach us today.
All right, so let's start with the big picture. What's the point of all these past life tales anyway?
I mean, just think about that for a second. What if you could see the whole chain of events, every choice, every consequence, that led you to become the exact person you are right now? Well, that's the incredible perspective the Buddha is offering in these stories.
The Sheng Jing is basically a collection of moments where the Buddha pulls back the curtain on his own epic journey. To explain something happening in the present, he'd often say, this reminds me of a story from a long, long time ago. And in that story, he was always the main character. Sometimes he was a powerful king, other times a humble animal, but every single time he was learning a critical lesson that would echo through the ages.
Okay, let's make this real with our first case study. This one is a super relatable story about desire and attachment, something I think we've all dealt with.
So the story kicks off with this monk who's given up literally everything to follow a spiritual path. But there's a big problem. He cannot stop thinking about the wife he left behind. The memory of her, their life together, it just haunts him. His new life, which is supposed to be about freedom, feels more like a prison. He's totally stuck.
So to explain what's going on, the Buddha tells a story from the distant past. It's about a king who had it all: wealth, power, and a palace full of beloved concubines. But one day, after a fight, they all just up and left. And suddenly, this powerful king is completely broken, just weeping and longing for what he's lost. All his riches meant absolutely nothing to him anymore.
You see the parallel here, right? We've got a monk who chose to give up one woman and a king who lost many against his will. Totally different circumstances, different eras, but their suffering, it's identical. It's coming from the exact same place, this deep, painful attachment to something they can't have.
Now, in the king's story, this wise sage named Narada shows up and drops this absolute gem of advice. He says, chasing after what you desire is like drinking salt water. It feels like it should quench your thirst, but it only makes you thirstier. What a perfect way to put it. And here's the kicker. This is where it all connects. The Buddha reveals that the tormented monk in the present was that grieving king in a past life. The same emotional pattern, the same suffering from attachment, was just repeating itself. And that wise sage Narada who gave him the lesson all those centuries ago? Yep, that was a previous incarnation of the Buddha. This wasn't the first time he'd had to help this particular soul with this exact problem.
Okay, so if that story was about desire, our next one shows a totally different side of karma, how a single, powerful intention can create a rivalry that lasts for lifetimes.
So, in his own lifetime, the Buddha had this cousin named Devadatta. And let me tell you, this guy was just constant trouble. He was intensely jealous of the Buddha and spent his life trying to undermine him, and even tried to kill him on multiple occasions. His hatred was just off the charts.
And of course, everyone around them was wondering why. I mean, where does that kind of relentless animosity, especially from family, even come from? So once again, the Buddha answered with a story from the deep past.
He tells them about a time when there was this contest. A very old, super respected Brahmin scholar was promised a beautiful woman as his wife. But then this young, brilliant, and frankly very handsome scholar shows up. He challenges everyone to a debate, wipes the floor with all of them, and by the rules of the contest, he wins the hand of the woman.
In that moment of absolute public humiliation and loss, the old Brahmin just fills with rage. And he doesn't just get mad, he makes this powerful karmic vow, a curse really, that would echo through time. In every life to come, I will be your enemy. He basically planted a seed of pure hatred that was destined to grow.
And then,
Boom! The Buddha connects all the dots. He reveals that the old, vengeful Brahmin from that story was reborn as his jealous cousin Devadatta. The young, brilliant scholar who won the day, that was a past life of the Buddha himself. And the woman at the center of it all was reborn as Yashodhara, the Buddha's wife in his current life. The ancient drama was just playing out its next scene.
So after hearing all that, what can we really take away from these incredible journeys through time? What does it all mean for us?
Well, a few things really stand out. First, just like we saw with the monk and the king, that feeling of unchecked desire and attachment is a timeless source of pain. It's just part of the human deal. Second, the story of Devadatta is a powerful reminder that our intentions, our vows, our anger, they have real weight. They create ripples that can follow us. But here's the hopeful part. When these old conflicts and patterns pop up again, it's actually an opportunity. It's a chance to react differently this time, with a bit more wisdom. And really, the first step to breaking free from any of these cycles is just being able to see the pattern in the first place.
You know, in the end, the birth sutras aren't just fascinating stories about the Buddha's past. They're really a mirror for our own lives. They remind us that every action, every intention, every word is like writing a sentence in the story of our future. So it leaves us with a pretty big question to think about. What story are you writing with your actions today?